So I thought I was like all ready and the nerves were gone, and then Debbie just did that, and now I'm like, oh man. Okay. Good morning, everyone, faculty, staff, students, families. It's great to see you all in the audience and to have everyone here today. I'd like to start with an introduction of my own. I've been called many names by many different people. Some call me Cam. To a dear friend, I'm known as Cece. Given my affinity this year for red flannel and an ever-lengthening beard, as you can see, I've coined myself Lumber Black. But I suppose my truest name, so to speak, is Cameron Joseph Cook. But what's in a name? I'm told by my parents that Cameron was a name they just liked, and that makes sense. Nothing wrong with that. I like it too. Cook, my last name, denotes the sort of Ellis Island journey of German immigrants that became my father's lineage. And my middle name, Joseph, is from my mother's father, my grandfather, whom I never knew. But in my name, he lives on, and I live on in his. I wanted to introduce myself this way to reference a speech my dear friend Rachel Jackson gave at the beginning of this year, where she urged us to talk about the importance of names and treating names with care. And it seems most fitting today, a day when all of our names are to be read out loud as we walk across the stage to remember that. Because names really themselves are just short stories. Stories of family and love, stories of immigration and diaspora, of pain, of histories, and of futures to come. I urge us all, as this long ceremony continues, to pay attention to these stories of how we came to be here, who we came here with, as we continue on into wherever we're going. Flip the page. So that was my introduction. In preparing this speech today, what I wanted to do was share some stories, and I thought and I reflected and I wrote some down, but it's so hard to think of stories that can best summarize my and our time here at Pomona. There are just far too many, and some that I'm sure I don't quite remember. And while I'm incredibly grateful to have been chosen to speak by my wonderful classmates, I can't possibly speak for all of the amazing people sitting before me today. There's no way that I could do all of you justice. Your stories are yours to tell, and yours alone. Our job will be to listen. Listening, after all, is something that I'm much more used to. Listening to teachers, listening to friends, listening to the noises and voices that make up the music of our lives. So, since I can't speak for all, or maybe even any of you today, I thought instead I might do something a little different and speak to someone. And thinking about today as a culmination of years, decades even, of learning, I found myself wanting to speak one last time with all of my teachers, visiting the offices of my favorite professors, having conversations with my closest of friends. But over and over again, there was one person who I kept coming back to who has been speaking to me in some form or another for over 10 years at this point. Someone who may have dropped out of college because they were always late for registration, but they did eventually graduate, and you know, they've gotten me through all of my 808s and heartbreak and this beautiful, dark, twisted fantasy that is Pomona College. So for the rest of this speech, class of 2015, I present to you an open letter to Kanye West, or the unexpected virtue of ignorance. Dear Mr. West, can I call you Kanye? We've never met, but you've been in my life for years. You were my middle school soundtrack, the music I turned to when my vision was first obstructed by the color line of racism. Your music was what I drowned myself in during the lowest moments of my depression my sophomore year at Pomona College. Your lyrics were the ones that scratched my throat as my best friend and I drunkenly yelled them late at night, unsure if we were laughing or crying. As I've been approaching graduation, I've been returning to your music ever more frequently, more so than usual. You see, in your first album, you dedicate multiple skits to decrying the uselessness of degrees, that accumulated degrees won't keep you warm when you're dead. His words, not mine. And as I stand here today, ready to complete one degree and begin another, I can't help but wonder if in some ways you're right. Because I'm so conflicted. Today is an incredibly happy day. We made it. We did. We made a way out of no way. But you see, my senior year at Pomona College, it started with Ferguson and it's ending with Baltimore. Fellow students in Mexico and Kenya have died pursuing their education. And as I've worked and I've sweat here, I felt so guilty. I've kept returning to your words in your song Power when you say this. You say, I just needed time alone with my own thoughts, got treasures in my mind but couldn't open up my own vault. My childlike creativity, purity, and honesty is honestly being crowded by these grown thoughts. Reality is catching up with me, taking my inner child. I'm fighting for custody with these responsibilities that they entrusted me as I look down at my diamond-encrusted piece, thinking no one man should have all that power. I don't have a diamond-encrusted piece, by the way. I wish. So you can see I've been so conflicted and confused. They say that we live in a bubble, a campus removed from the real world. And now as we're graduating, it feels that that bubble is about to burst upon contact with reality. But what scares me, I think, more than this bubble is the fact that this bubble does not really exist. To be clear, being at Pomona and college in general has granted us immense privilege and power, some of which feels undeserved at times. But Pomona is the real world. It's a part of the real world that's supported by labor of all kinds, some made more visible than others. Our gorgeous campus has labor behind it. Our clean residence halls have labor behind it. Everything that happens on this campus, good and bad, is inextricably tied to the world beyond these gates and vice versa. But don't get me wrong, I know this has been pretty bleak, but I'm conflicted because Pomona College has also changed my life. Pomona is where I met the most amazing people. Seriously, that's not just like a platitude on graduation. There are amazing people here. The faculty, but also the students. Students who are friends, teachers, warriors, activists, fighters, reformers, jokesters, and more. To echo Colson's wonderful speech yesterday, Pomona is where I learned to practice community. Pomona is where I learned to love myself. And so maybe it's okay to feel a little guilty. It's a reminder of the charge that I've been given. And this time is, after all, one of celebration, to celebrate ourselves, our accomplishments, our communities and families. We did it. And maybe, Kanye, you're right about the degrees. Maybe they are meaningless. Or maybe their meaning is only what we make of it. Maybe what's more important is the stories that these degrees represent. The triumphs and struggles, the loves and the futures. Maybe, no wait, definitely, Toni Morrison got it right in her Nobel Prize lecture, because Toni Morrison knows everything. In it, Morrison recounts the story of an old, blind woman, an oracle of sorts, possessing immense wisdom. Some young people come to her, hoping to stump her by saying, "There's a bird in our hands. Is it alive or dead?" Because the woman can't see the bird, the kids think she's unable to answer their question. They think they've got her. And in fact, she does answer with silence. And frustrated at her silence and frustrated with her lack of an answer, they admit that there really was no bird in their hands to begin with. And they grow angry. They grow angry that she can't bequeath to them knowledge about this bird. Knowledge that for them comes to symbolize their questions about identity, mortality, and life. Only then, when they're done speaking, does the woman respond. She says, "Finally, I trust you now. I trust you with the bird that is not in your hands, because you have truly caught it. Look, how lovely it is, this thing we have done together." You see, in the children's furious desire for knowledge, they come to know themselves without necessarily realizing it. And perhaps that best approximates what we've done here at Pomona College. That in our quest for knowledge, our greatest discoveries have been ourselves. So no, Kanye, I don't think I know what to do with this degree now that's in my hands, or maybe it's not. I'm not sure I ever will. But to borrow your words to send off my wonderful class of 2015, until we do know what to do with these degrees, fuck that, the world's ours. Thank you.